Amy Ringel takes a deeper look at how we live through her drawing.
What inspires you to explore the urban landscape?
I feel like I experience the world through seeing and through drawing. So I really get inspired when I'm actually in the landscape or I'm walking and it's going to that location. And the first time it might be just purely drawing. The second time I go, I start to notice that there's something that's subtly different than what happened before. Returning over and over allows me to see and notice, and then through the act of drawing I'm documenting that process, capturing that process, and then also photographing. I take lots of photographs and not just trying to get that one single shot. I'll photograph in a way where I'm sort of piecing together all of these photographs to make one larger thing that then when I'm in the studio I started to edit them down and focus in on a particular area to try and emphasize what those subtle changes were when I get to the final stages of the drawing.
Through your process, you take pictures and considering where that decision is going to fit into the bigger, past.
Absolutely, and that is a major part. I think a part of my process of being in the studio and surrounding myself with that environment by putting up all of the images, but in the orientation that it is actually of that site. Because I feel like I need to be very aware of how, not just how they relate to themselves, but how they relate on the whole. And same thing in the drawing process. I'll look at this one thing, but I'm always trying to think about how does that one thing relate to the greater image? How does it relate to what else I'm trying to emphasize or focus on?
Well, why are there no figures in the drawings?
Through the process of going to the site over and over, I feel like taking the figures out, by not including them, then the viewer starts to become that person in that space or environment. There's a lot of information that gets edited out that I don't share with the viewer in the drawing. So I hope, or I intend to have that viewer then become a part of that scene or a part of that space or environment.
And why do you want the viewer to have that particular experience?
I hope that they can get lost in the work, but also feel comfortable enough where that environment or space feels familiar, yet they're not quite sure where it is. So I usually will take out things that can identify it to a specific place, even though that I do stay very true to the source that I'm taking it from. I don't want them to be limited to one particular interpretation of the work.
What is the dialogue that you hope that your artwork has with the viewer?
I really hope that they're able to see that there's a searching, that I'm documenting, I'm observing, but in more of an anthropological way, that it's about the human condition, it's about the environment or community in which we live. I mean, I hope that somebody would look at it and then in turn look at their community or in their environment or space and become more appreciative, but also just a heightened sense of awareness or sensitivity to where they're living. A good example would be a parking block, something that you would think would be permanent. It would stay in one place. This parking block has moved to various locations within the parking area of this apartment complex. And whether it's moved for practical reasons, I'm not sure, or a door being closed up and now there's a new utility box there. There's practical reasons for some of these changes. Sometimes they may not be for aesthetics. They may not be for making it beautiful, but that it's for security or it's for privacy.
And do you find beauty in that?
Absolutely.
How so?
A cast shadow moving across the window frame onto the side of the wall and then onto the sidewalk as it moves across. For me, that sense of light, that sense of environment or space, and to be able to capture that on paper, that is what I find really beautiful. Or the scar left from something that was once there is no longer there. It's sort of a remnant that's left behind that tells about our presence in that place. We've changed that, or we've moved that, we've adapted it in some way. I think that is, really subtly beautiful.
In the process of creating this beauty that you see, how does it raise our collective consciousness and our awareness as a society?
It starts to bring up how our infrastructure changes. Essential things like electricity or water or temperature control in our homes. These are all things that we feel like we need to survive. I think it talks about how we live, and how certain things become very important, our security or our privacy. And in one of the pieces in particular, the utility box is now covering up part of the address of the apartment unit. The decision to move it over a little bit to one side or the other, it wasn't even a consideration. And that really makes me think about how we move through our world, how we move through our society. Sometimes we do things and we're so focused on them that we don't realize how it's going to impact us down the road.
What is the role of the artist?
I think it's to ask questions, and be curious and be observant and sensitive. For me, that practice of sensitivity comes through observing, and it comes through, for me, that act of drawing. I see through the pencil on paper, and I think the artist is there to raise some of these questions and not necessarily answer them, but to allow a dialogue or a conversation to start to happen, allow that viewer an opportunity to look at one work and then see it in relation to other pieces or other work or the space or environment that they're in, and see how this one thing connects to that greater whole, how them as that single person relates to their community.